So I was born into the business of food. The month that I was born, my parents started to build this mushroom farm. And as we grew, so did the farm. I spent my childhood growing up, clambering over hay bales and winding myself as I fell off. We'd go through the growing sheds and we'd scramble up 5 stacks of growing trays just to check out the crops at the top. In the school holidays, I got to work in harvesting or maybe the pack shed. And no matter where we went, everywhere and anywhere, we would visit supermarkets and check out the produce department. As the years went on, I worked in marketing and sales there, and then I took on a board role, and I'm still lucky enough to be in that role. So I have had the privilege of working in the business of food my whole life. And I have worked beyond mushrooms. I've also had the pleasure of working in chocolate, in dairy, and in wine. Basically, all the categories I've chosen have been products I love and industries which connect growers and consumers, and in doing so, impact the society in which we live. And evolving diets has been part of my job throughout, but it's also been really obvious just looking at our environment and our landscape. Growing up, we would drive through South Canterbury, and it was hard not to notice the dry brown fields scattered liberally with some of our 60 million sheep. If you drive those same roads now, you can see the tall macrocarpa hedges have come down and been replaced by shining stainless steel. The fields are full of lush green grass, glinting irrigators, and some pretty happy-looking cows. And I'm reasonably confident this landscape is just going to continue to change. And not only the landscape has changed, people's attitudes, consumers' attitudes to food has also changed. In recent years, you will have noticed Greta Thunberg's impassioned pleas about climate change, or to have got embroiled in conversations about Game Changers, the movie Arnold Schwarzenegger made about life as a vegan. And much more recently, it's really hard not to have been slightly shaken by David Attenborough's movie, A Life on Our Planet, in which he explains with his inimitable clarity just how dire the climate crisis is. So what's become really clear through this is the fact that we have done an incredible job at increasing food production and food productivity. But at the same time, this has come at an enormous cost to our planet and the world we live in. And the thing that this always makes me ask is, how do we respond to these challenges? What is our response? So I suppose I'm keen to understand from everybody here and just get a feel for your perspective on this. So I'd ask you to do a show of hands. Can you put your hand up if you also feel like climate change is actually going to cause some real challenges for our sector? Great, so we're pretty much on the same page. Yep, if you can put your hands down. How about, does anyone here feel like we have a really clear line of sight as to how we're going to respond to these challenges? If so, put your hand up. Yeah, I'm in your camp on this one, I have to say. And because we're talking about diet, and diet is at the heart of these conversations, and by association, our global and local food systems, does anyone here, please put your hand up if you actually expect the world to turn vegan in your lifetime? I don't even think I can see one hand out there. And I agree. Nothing I have read said the world is going to turn vegan or vegan, depending on how you want to say it. But we do have real challenges as a sector. And I don't think we're clear yet as to how we're going to respond to some of those challenges. So let's just take a moment and think about some of the facts that we're facing, and particularly around the environment and our food systems. So we know that our food systems cause about a third or over a third of global greenhouse gas emissions. And obviously we have to eat, but is there a way that we can eat that is less impactful on our planet? Secondly, we know that animal products actually have a much higher carbon footprint than plants. And we know that we're wasting so many of our resources. 8% of global greenhouse gas emissions are used to produce food for human consumption and wasted. And none of these numbers are good. We also know we don't need to all turn vegan in order to actually make a difference. So a University of Otago study that came out last year looked at climate and healthy eating. And what it highlighted, that if we as individuals followed the New Zealand dietary guidelines and simply replaced one meal a week of meat, seafood, or eggs with legumes, nuts, and grains, we can reduce our personal emissions by 7%. Now, if we do that every day of the week, we can reduce them by 23%. So what this got me thinking is, what would it take to encourage people like me, who don't want to give up meat and dairy entirely? What would it take to encourage us to actually get plants into the center of the plate more often? And at the same time, given my background, I couldn't help but think, what are the products that we as producers need to be growing in this country that will continue to feed the world, and feed the world with products they want and need? So to answer this, I went to the market. And I wanted to see, what are the products out there? And there's essentially 3 kinds of products that we could find all over the place that are getting all the shelf space and all the airtime. Firstly, there's fake meat. Now, this is the Impossible Meats of the world, the Beyond Meat. And let's be clear, they're genius. They're a great analogue of meat. They use coconut oil to create little fat globules. They use beetroot juice to bleed. They look red with the beetroot juice. Impossible Burger uses genetically modified heme to give you that taste sensation of meat. And they are a great analogue of meat. But they're not meat. If I want to eat meat, I'll eat meat. So, from my perspective, that wasn't going to cut the mustard. The other products that I could find all over the place tended to be soy or gluten-based. And again, I had problems with these. Most of the products and the ingredients are imported. As a New Zealand producer, that didn't really work for me. Equally, I'm not that keen on soy. And quite honestly, the taste and textural compromise I had to make just didn't cut it. So again, they weren't working for me. Now, the third type of product that is getting a huge amount of airtime is cell-based meat. So cell-based or lab-grown meat is definitely going to give meat a run for its money. But it's actually not available here. It's only available in countries like Singapore and Israel. So it will come, and it will be interesting, but it's not a choice. So all 3 of these options are interesting, and they have advantages for certain people, but from my perspective, they were not what I was looking for. I wanted something quite different. I wanted something that was fresh and tasty and varied and easy to use and actually quite versatile in the same way as most of the products we're currently using. And it had to be delicious. And now delicious for me is easy to define. It doesn't mean it has to be fancy. You know when people have had a great meal and they tell you about their meal and their eyes twinkle and you can almost hear them salivating? That's delicious. So it had to be delicious. And the third thing, from my perspective, it had to make me feel good. I was doing this for all sorts of rational and emotional reasons, so it had to be joyous to buy. It had to be joyous to cook. And super importantly, it had to be really delicious and joyous to eat. So knowing what I was looking for, what I couldn't understand, growing up in New Zealand, living in New Zealand, we have all of these amazing crops and vegetables at our disposal. What seemed like the obvious solution was to shift the plants from the side of the plate to the center of the plate. And this is even more obvious if you actually have an understanding of the nutrient makeup of most of the crops I'm talking about. So we started looking in the market to see what was available, and there's all sorts of cool stuff happening out there that's coming on stream, work being done with water lentils, or the work that Leaf is doing around grassy crops turning into protein. But there's also a whole lot of stuff that's actually in the market already. So there's crops like quinoa and buckwheat. They're already a complete source of protein, and they're full of phytonutrients and other essential minerals that people actually need in their diet. There's crops like hemp that is great for both food and fibre. And these are all widely available. They're all gluten-free, and they're all being grown in Canterbury already and across New Zealand. So knowing all of this, the thing that seemed the most obvious to us is that we would eat our way out of the problem. So we pulled all the pieces together, and we started experimenting. And the thing that is really obvious if you've spent your lifetime in consumer goods is people don't buy things because they should. They buy things because they love them. So our challenge was to make products that people loved and to make delicious, nutritious products that were easy to use. And in doing so, we felt that we could actually drive a system-wide change through people's bellies and through their taste buds. So we started with the Mighty Mushroom, a product I knew reasonably well. It's not only environmentally incredibly efficient, but it's also a dietary superfood. It's full of all the essential vitamins and minerals, and we used the really fresh, less than perfect looking mushrooms, took a stalks and all approach, and we combined them with lots of fresh vegetables and other crops. We played with beetroot and kumara, with quinoa, hemp, cauliflower, peas, so many different ingredients to come up with a range of products. But critically, we were never trying to emulate meat. Our whole objective was to showcase the plants in our products and to put them in the center of the plate. So mid-COVID last year, we launched Food Nation. And in September, we crept into supermarkets. Now, in the same month, we were also rather stunned and totally delighted to be told that we had won the best meat alternative at the World Plant-Based Awards in New York. Woohoo! But it was a huge boost for us. It was also really exciting because of the feedback we got. So the feedback we got from the judges was, we won because we didn't try to be something we weren't. We won because we were showcasing our ingredients, and we do. We showcase it in the name of the product. We showcase it in the product itself. You can see the chunks of plants, and we showcase it on the back of the packaging in the ingredients list. So essentially what we were trying to do is we were showcasing New Zealand as the garden to the world, not just the farm to the world. And this seems like a really natural extension of the position that New Zealand has always taken in the world of food. So essentially our plan was to enable everyone to eat their way to a healthier planet, and in doing so, we put Food Nation in the market. But I started off today talking about climate as a driver for this shift. The other driver is health. Now, the concept of a balanced diet having an impact on your health makes a lot of sense, but I was still rather stunned to see all the research in this space and to understand that the number one driver when you do research across Australia, the US, New Zealand, is consistently health as the driver for this shift. Environment only ever comes out second. And when you're talking to vegans, animal welfare is there and it indexes higher for vegans, but health is consistently the number one driver. And you need to understand some of the facts that sit behind this. We've got 2.5 billion people who are over-consuming in calories. And this is what's driving issues around obesity, around diabetes, issues around cardiovascular disease. You've then got another 4 billion people who are under-consuming. So they're not getting enough nutrients or they're not getting enough food in its own right. So all of these things led to us recognizing if we can make it easier to get more plants on more plates, then we can effectively kill 2 birds with 1 stone without killing any. We can address both climate and health at the same time. And then, of course, there's the wider sector issues. And I'm sure everyone in this room will have seen that there's been a number of reports that have come out recently. And what a lot of them talk about is what we need to do as a sector and how we need to adapt and how we need to find new, sustainable, future-proof revenue streams that will, if not replace, will at least supplement our current revenue streams. So these are the kind of crops we're talking about. And our challenge is how do we build demand for these crops? How do we actually build markets both locally and in an export sense for these crops? And in New Zealand, the diet is shifting too. Over 1/3 of New Zealanders are now eating less meat. So this shouldn't come as a surprise to you. And that covers off vegans, vegetarians, and a group that we term reducitarians. This is the group who are actually, they're the people like me, the people who are consciously eating less meat. And this is not a demographic conversation. This covers boomers as much as it does millennials. It impacts everyone. So as we pull these pieces together, we've got health, we've got climate, we've got future-proof, sustainable revenue streams. And it seems to me that we need to think about food fit for the future quite differently. We need to ensure that the crops we're growing can actually be used in their totality. We need to make sure that the crops we're producing are giving as much back to the land as they're taking away. And we need to make sure that we're actually supporting a healthy diet that focuses both on nutrition and sustenance. I can't tell you how the landscape's going to continue to evolve, but I am absolutely confident it will as we continue to transform our food systems. And there's no silver bullets out there, but I do think there's a lot of examples here that are much, much simpler than a whole-scale switch to veganism. And I think we have a huge opportunity to be really proactive in how we answer some of these questions. Some of the big questions like what will we eat and what will we produce? And the market is definitely looking for solutions to these challenges, both from a consumer and a producer side. So the more we can work together in resolving these problems, the better. And the more people who are looking for these solutions, the better. Thank you.